Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, Sargasso. We're going to talk about that a little later. This is, where are we? Life List, a birding podcast. I'm Alvaro Jaramillo, and I am here with Molly Brown and George Armistead. So the whole gang is here. And we're going to talk about various things, including the word Sargasso. So how are you all doing?
Doing just fine over here.
It's going good. Yeah. Summer is upon us.
Summer is upon us. And we were just recording yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's one of those things that we're so, it's almost like I'm thinking, don't repeat anything we talked about yesterday because they're not out yet, these recordings, but then I'm like, you know what? Probably doesn't matter. We could repeat things and people would still listen. I hope.
There you go. Maybe if people don't listen, then it's like they're hearing it for the first time each time.
I know. Or you know what they say, really good information or marketing or whatever, you need to hear it like 3 times before you actually get it, right? So then, if we talk about lumps and splits 3 times, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember all that stuff now. I've heard it 3 times.
Repetition, that's the key.
What was that again?
I was talking to Jimmy this morning. He listens to a lot of political podcasts, and he was saying how they've all been putting out these like emergency podcasts and producing really quickly as, political events have unfolded in the U.S. And I said, well, we're doing the same thing. It's taxonomy season. So
yeah,
we've got to get it out there.
Yeah. Hurry.
Gotta roll. Yeah.
What's going on?
Oh, yeah. And exact same thing.
I think one of the
stakes
before the stakes are really high. It's your life list.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get really into it, but one of the things that does remind me of that, I see a confusion right now with people saying, okay, so the AOS brought out this thing, but I thought like the herring gull was already split. But I was like, no, that's like Cornell eBird split that, but AOS didn't. And then now people are getting really confused.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing, but we can talk about that in a little bit. We could first just sort of say, what have we been doing? What have we been seeing? Because we haven't had a chance to sort of talk about what's going on in our local areas for a bit. Molly, what's up in your neck of the woods?
Well, we're in what a lot of folks around this part of the world would call a slow birding time. So I'm continuing my summer of hanging out at home for the most part, which is great. Spending a lot of time in the garden. It's pretty sad because it's been incredibly dry in addition to being hot this summer. So my tomatoes are a little misformed, but they are producing now. So as far as what I've been seeing, it's been things that are just hanging out in my patch for the most part. Some interesting breeding records of birds that are kind of in this corner of West Virginia. Added some fun things like horned larks and Vesper sparrows to the patch list and doing a lot of running and that sort of thing. Yeah. So just here on this, I'm kind of like into this corner of West Virginia. That's the Allegheny Plateaus, kind of converging with the hillier parts of Appalachia that are west of here. So we've got some of this grassland. We've got a bit more ag field and fallow ag field that produces some more of this kind of habitat. So stuff that's locally exciting. Otherwise, I'm chasing butterflies and moths and mammals and herps and everything else.
That's kind of interesting. As you're talking, I was thinking like, wow, for me, in California, I think of like horned larks and also Vesper sparrows, obviously as grassland birds, but I think of them way more as almost not only farmland, because we have plenty of farmland here, but we don't have those birds. They need to be sort of in grassland, dry areas further inland or at the foothills of the Sierra. And it's funny because you're I'm with where you are, a lot of farmland is creating that grassland habitat that the birds are using. That's kind of cool. Here, it really is almost like you need to have some native grassland or cattle ranching that's at a low level, enough of a low level that there's some sort of real grass rather than over used. So it's
Hmm.
interesting. The East versus West again. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here too, West Virginia is one of the most heavily forested states in the US. And so there's not a lot of that, what would be natural grassland habitat, because forestry in the last 150 years has disrupted that so much. But around here too, there's not much agriculture to create any of that. I think I talk about farming a lot because I grew up farming, but there's not much farming here. And if it's
Hmm.
not farmland, it's either strip mine, like what I live on, that is my meadow that's really overgrown. It's kind of in between, like what you would call grassland and secondary forests. So you don't get you don't get either of those species really in a lot of our fields.
Is it
So
like
it's either
indigo bunting habitat, kind of like that edge,
yeah,
or
yeah, and like field sparrows, yellow throats, a little bit of that. But then there are weird things like we don't have it's too overgrown for grasshopper sparrows, or
huh? Yeah,
meadowlarks are not here,
yeah,
like here at my house. But then you go, one field over that's an old hayfield or something that's maybe had crops in the past and doesn't now, or something like that, and you've got the birds I was talking about, plus like tons of bobolinks um, and red-winged blackbirds and that kind of thing too. So I don't. It's all new to
interesting.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, it paints a really cool picture to hear you talk about the way that the secondary forests are starting to appear and what birds are there, and sort of the overgrown farmland and what's over there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Gosh, here, we really have much more. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to explain, but in the farm fields around here, it's vegetable farming. So it's been plowed, and in the winter maybe there's some geese on that field or something like that, or it's a set of vegetables growing and there's almost no birds on it, just because it's such a odd structured habitat, except
Yeah.
for Brussels sprouts. In the fall, Brussels sprouts collect up migrant birds like you wouldn't believe, because they almost
Really?
look like little trees. And they're sort of, Brussels sprout plant
Uh
is,
huh.
about a meter, 3-4 feet tall,
Uh huh.
and there's all this density, and apparently they're attacked by a lot of bugs.
I was
So,
gonna say
you know,
I have this rule for myself that I don't grow brassicas in the garden here. So
yeah,
no cabbages or broccoli or anything, because they grow really well. That's what gets me, is they really want
yeah,
to grow around here, but they get demolished by insects. But then there were some Brussels sprouts sitting out for like 50 cents at one of the
yeah,
places around here earlier this summer. So I do have some Brussels sprouts growing. I have 4.
right.
And I hate them. They drive me nuts. They're covered in pests of like all different types. It is the battle of my garden, and I regret it every time. But I'm
Yeah,
glad that they do
I
something out there.
I don't know, and maybe I don't want to know what kind of chemistry is needed to maintain a Brussels sprout field going, but certainly the birds are doing their part. They're in there, hopefully not getting any of those chemicals on them, but they're definitely helping. In the fall at least,
Hmm.
just they're in there feeding like crazy. And I'm sure it's like just little soft caterpillar type stuff that
Yeah.
seems to hit the brassica. But wow, birds and gardens. I'm sure that George has probably a lot more garden news and bird news, because he does not like this time of year. I know this.
That is true. Yes, well established. Yeah, we. Yeah, I haven't been out too much locally. I did take a nice hike yesterday and found a lovely little eastern box turtle, which something, Molly, you probably get to see a good bit, but I see them a few times a year here. And to actually see them in the city limits is always a treat.
Hmm. That's cool.
And they're like, I guess they usually live like 25, 35 years is kind of average. But they can live up to like 80 years.
I was going to say, did you see the news from Powder Mill Nature Reserve over
I don't
on
think so, no.
my side of Pennsylvania? They have one. I'll have to pull it up while we're looking. I mean, I think it was somewhere between 80 and 100 years that they've been logging it.
Wow. Whenever I see one now, I find myself thinking like, who's older, me or this box turtle. And box turtles, of course, sort of a misnomer. They're technically tortoises. They're just so cool. And, to me, they're kind of a sign of a healthy-ish forest. It's just nice to see. And often when I see them, they box up, they kind of shrink up and they recede into their shell and go into their box. This guy was kind of like, you could tell it was on the move, and I didn't disturb it. I didn't pick it up. Sometimes I'll pick them up, but this one looked at me like, "Hey, I got stuff to do here. I'm a busy box turtle. I'm moving." and so it, like, I could tell he was on the move. He was going. So I just kind of sat back and watched it for a while. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, otherwise I got back from Colorado a few days ago, had a good trip out there with my buddy Carl Bendorf and a bunch of our good friends from the Atlanta area. It was really nice. We had beautiful experience with white-tailed ptarmigan. We had one actually come. We got out to that high spot up in Rocky Mountain National Park, where you get over 12,000 feet up there, up in the alpine tundra. And there's not much diversity of birds, but what you see is pretty cool. Speaking of horned larks, that's a bird we saw nearly all over Colorado, and the juvies are out. Yeah, which are cool looking, but man, they are confusing especially to folks that haven't seen them before. They are really, really kind of drab and scaly and pale and variable. So those actually are up in the alpine tundra. A lot of American pipits around, calling, displaying a little bit even. We had a couple brown-capped rosy finches up there. Some white-crowned sparrows, and like the other kind of bird that is routine up there is the white-tailed ptarmigan. We got out of our vans, walked a little ways, and had a nice male just come like rocketing in overhead, kind of come barreling down the mountain, landed below us, and then we got to just kind of watch it do its thing for a while. So that was pretty cool. That's, special bird, white-tailed ptarmigan. And seeing the brown-capped rosy finches, there's pikas are up there, and you know how ridiculously cute pikas are.
Pika, as they call it.
It is actually. You're right. I looked this up, Alvaro, because Carl and I got into a bit of a
tussle.
A tussle when it comes to the pronunciation of the word.
Somebody got picky over pika.
Here he goes. Yeah. Well, there's the word marmot.
Marmot. In France. No.
Incorrect.
No? Okay.
Incorrect.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. I have always said marmot, and but Carl was saying marmot, and I was like, I don't think
that's like Marmite. You put that on a sandwich, right?
Yeah, it's a Vegemite sandwich. But yes. At least the Men at Work song.
The Vegemite is the subspecies in Australia of Marmite,
right,
which is the subspecies in the UK. So
that's valid. Yeah.
According to
I can
AOS.
attest to this. Yeah. But I was saying we got into that, and then like I was looking up pika, and I was like, oh damn, man, it's actually pronounced pika. But I don't think I'm going to make the change.
I was going to say, what are you going to do? Is this going to become your hill?
Yeah, I think I'm dying on the pika hill, and I'm okay with that. Like that's going to be a tough change for me to make, saying pika.
Tough change.
I don't think this is as good a word. I don't like it as much.
Yeah. In a little bit, we can talk about the fact that the only remaining hoary animal is the marmot in the U.S. and Canada.
That's true.
And then finally, American pipit makes sense as a name. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a sec. I don't know, what else did you see in the lowlands in Colorado?
Yeah, well, we did go out to Pawnee grassland and saw the two prairie longspurs, the thick-billed longspur and chestnut-collared longspurs were out there. And tons of those juvie horned larks. There's good numbers of the lark buntings, which is the state bird, one of the really good state birds, I would say, that exists, although neither a lark nor a bunting, so perhaps a questionable name, but still a very cool bird. And we also did this big loop south of Denver. We cover about 400 miles on that day. But we saw a nice group of pinion jays and a couple little colonies of Lewis's woodpeckers. Just a bunch of stuff, scaled quail. Just good general birding. We birded the park lower down in the park as well. Spent 2 days in the park. We're seeing moose and elk and a variety of cool squirrels, including Abert's squirrel, which is like,
oh, really?
one of those tassel-eared squirrels with the real pointy ears. Sort of looks like lynx ears.
Lynx ears.
Yeah, so that was good. And then I got back, and the local marmot here, the groundhog, woodchuck, if you will, has gotten into our backyard here.
What is the official name of that creature, by the way?
I know it's groundhog. Yeah,
is it groundhog? It's the actual official mammal
it is a
name?
marmot. I think a lot of people don't realize that.
I mean, eastern marmot I've heard of in the past, but that never caught on. But
yeah, groundhog, also known as woodchuck, Marmota monax or monax.
Huh. Yeah. It's an interesting name, right? So either one of them would be an interesting name.
Yeah.
It ranges across most of the eastern U.S., but sort of like a lot of eastern
Canada.
Yeah, I was going to say, across Canada, but actually even across central Canada and even parts of like BC, Alaska, Yukon.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at INAT. There's this like isolated part right around it's around Fairbanks, where there are reports up there, and then there's a big gap. Relatively big. That's probably lack of data, but into central and western Canada.
That's almost like upland sandpiper distribution. They breed all the way up into Alaska and then all the way down to the east. Crazy.
Yeah, well, they've been getting into our tomatoes here. And man, if you ever want to hear my wife, Kristen, curse like a sailor, boy, you just, start stealing her tomatoes because, man, she is livid. Like, man, the texts I got about this groundhog just before I got home stealing tomatoes, she's seeing red. It's ugly. I'm scared for the safety of that animal.
Wow. And here tomatoes are like a month away.
Oh yeah, we have our first ones right around 4th of July.
No, much cooler here. You don't get that growth. Also probably less light, right? Just in general.
Yeah.
Lower latitude. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. We might all be about the same latitude.
Yeah. I don't know if we're drastically different. But
yeah. So that's not it. Just a crappy place to grow tomatoes.
I'll tell you what, I moved plant zones from where I lived before up to here, and it put me back about 3 weeks just going up, 1,000 feet in elevation, but it changed the climate a lot. I'm not done talking about turtles yet because I found this link from Powder Mill and it's really cool. I'll link this in the show notes too, but Powder Mill Nature Reserve is sort of near Pittsburgh. I know it as a place where a lot of folks go for banding workshops of all different types. But they do a lot of things. They've been around for a while. And in 1967, they marked an eastern box turtle as number 7. It was seen again in 2004. It was seen again in 2009. And it was seen again this year. And when they first marked it in 1967, I'm not sure how they got this specific, but they aged it as 22 years old, meaning it hatched in 1945, putting it at 79 years old.
It's almost as old as my dad. Good Lord. That's crazy.
Yep. So I'll link this photo. That's a photo of a box turtle. You can't tell its age by looking at it. But isn't that wild?
That's amazing.
Yeah. But how many book reviews has that box turtle done? None. But your dad.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
That's his age, right?
That's right.
I'm surprised. You know what's surprising about that information is how seldom they saw it in all those years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that too.
Not seen
Few
that
detections, really.
Huh. Yeah. It says in 2004, 2009, and this year, 2024, it was all in a very similar location. So
Wow.
I don't. It didn't know. I'd have to look through the comments to see if they gave more details. But
So
pretty wild.
they eat and then they sort of hide and just digest for months at a time, maybe. Like it could be one of those kind of
Yeah,
things.
it sounds like it's been nesting season. At
Okay.
least these past 3 times that it's been found, so it's actively nesting at that point. And this is when you see them around here.
I know in the Galapagos there was a time where they were saying, we have info on some of these tortoises being 150 years old at least. But it gets difficult because when they get really old, the little rings on the scutes, they get rubbed off, so you can't count the little rings, which I guess gives you an idea of growth seasons. But they now have estimates of some of the ages, and I always pose the question: could any of these tortoises have been alive when Darwin was here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like marginal. It could be. It's like 200 something years. And if you think if a box turtle's living that long, a huge big tortoise probably lives like twice at least, or
Yeah.
So it's interesting to contemplate some of these animals that live long times, and then those sharks, like Greenland sharks and leatherback sea turtles and bowhead whales. They kind of come to mind as like the long-lived critters, but and I bet we're only learning about this now because it almost takes you time to learn about long life.
Right. Yeah.
Even with birds, especially like banding. We don't have birds that have been banded all that long and the bands wear away. So you have to have such an, heavily banded area for a really long-lived bird to ever be detected again, a known bird. So
yeah,
I bet wandering albatrosses live 100
over
years,
100.
I'm sure. Yeah. At least, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet.
Gives me chills.
Given what we've known about wisdom, I bet you're right about those great albatrosses. Yeah,
Cool.
just about, you mentioned Greenland shark, Al. It says they are the longest living vertebrate in the world. They don't know how old they can live exactly, but they think between 250 to 500 years old.
Jeez.
And they expect up to 392 years old at least.
Huh. That's crazy. Like, what's the secret, Greenland shark? Hobbies?
I think it's being ugly as hell. Have you seen those things? Man.
Yeah.
It's not a beautiful animal. I'll tell you that.
Not beautiful. Hey, who are you to say who's beautiful, huh? So what else is going on? Oh, yeah. I haven't talked about what I've been up to, huh?
Yeah, what have you been up to?
You just got back.
Boy, I was in the Galapagos Islands, so that was really great. But before talking about that, we have these trips, pelagic trips scheduled. The early ones go to the Farallon Islands, which are a breeding area for birds, and then later we do sort of our offshore birding trips. They start in July, August, some of the offshores. So, in a sense, the Farallon Islands are a little bit more. You seldom get crazy things that are out of the blue there because you're going to a breeding area and you're, sort of seeing the murres and the puffins, and you're working hard to just sort of find all of the species that are there. But on our last trip, we went out there. We had a great time looking at puffins, did all the sort of regular stuff, northern fur seals, blah, blah, blah. We had seen some humpback whales on the way out. Then we go to we usually have about an hour to go, an hour and a little bit to go to the deeper water. And we start seeing blows in the distance. And it's like, oh, these look like blue whales. And suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, there's blue whales, hundreds of Cassin's auklets. And the blue whales and the Cassin's auklets eat the same thing, krill. And at that point, Chris Hayward turns around and says, hey, look at this thing behind us. And it's a Cook's petrel, which is, you might, if you don't live in California, you probably hear Cook's petrels are seen here kind of all the time, but it's not quite that. In Southern California, they see them regularly in certain pelagic trips and on these offshore repositioning cruises. But for us, further in the north, we seldom see them. I think it's the third time we've seen them up here. So it's a pretty, we've probably been unlucky, to tell you the truth. We should have seen more, but that was just out of the blue because it's been very cold here. And then, Scripps' merlet shows up, and right, blue whales, and a big pod of northern right whale dolphins, like 200 plus.
Oof, man.
And in with them Pacific white-sided dolphins, and it's just gone haywire. Like everything is out there, and it was just one of those trips where I said to everybody there, it's like, you picked the right day to be out here, because we saw all of the expected things, but the pluses were seen well, and lots of them. Just masses of good birds and whales, and got back and just big smiles on everybody's faces. Just really great trip. So those are the ones where you come back and you're like, wow, it was, and the weather was pretty good. Everything was great, so I was just got to mention that's been one almost as exciting as anything that's happened this month. But Galapagos was great. Again, a boat-based trip.
Speaking of sharks, as I saw that you saw a rather large shark while you were down there, Al.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that the bird of the trip for some people was a tiger shark, right? Which is
that's the big
known person eater, or what have you. And
it's kind of one of the big three there,
Yeah. And somebody who a biologist told me that they would rather be in the water with a great white shark than a tiger shark, because they're way more unpredictable or something.
You guys beat a pretty hasty retreat out of the, because some of y'all were swimming, yeah?
Yeah, we were snorkeling, and there had been this report that a tiger shark had been seen by somebody in the last couple of weeks or something. It didn't seem, but a tiger shark just swam right underneath us, maybe, I don't know. It's hard to estimate, maybe it was only 10 feet down below us.
Oh my God.
And it just went right underneath us and kind of away from us. And I was able to videotape it, but I remember, like, I had my GoPro thing on, so it wasn't really video, it's just film it. But it was right underneath swimming, and I could see the stripes, and I'm like, because I'm looking, I was like, oh, there's a big shark. And I was like, oh, hold on a second. This one's got stripes. This is the old tiger shark. And we had been looking for hammerheads, and a couple of people, I saw a couple, and some other folks had seen a couple, and hammerheads are really kind of fine. But I popped up and I said, tiger shark. And a couple of the other people said, we saw it. And then you could see the panga, the little boat that is there. It's like, okay, everybody, let's get out of the water here. Just bring the fins over here. Like they weren't trying to make
we're gonna get going now.
A big scene out of it. There was just like, oh, right. And there was one of the local boat guys that was swimming with us, and he gets out of the water and he says, I've never seen one of those in my life. And that's when I realized that was really, really unusual. I sort of thought we got lucky, just a little lucky. Like they're always, every few months they see tiger sharks, whatever, but apparently not. It was a real good find. But,
wow.
So we got to see it, enjoy it, and nobody got killed.
That's the best.
Great.
Yeah. I love that. That happens.
But yeah, so we I think I put it up on, maybe I need to put it up on iNaturalist, but thing that
you do, come on.
Yeah, it's one of those, I got a lot of things going on, Yeah.
Nothing would get in the way of me.
It was so broad from the top that I do remember, like, for seeing it from above, the head is so wide. I was like, gosh, that looks like a little whale shark. It was like squared off. And then it was when I saw these stripes, I'm like, oh no, that's a really big tiger shark, so wow. It was pretty big. I don't know what to say other than it was longer than I am, so it was probably 8 feet, 9 feet plus or something. So it's a good animal. But and nobody was actually scared. We all were sort of processing. We'd just seen this huge animal go by, and I was like, all right, well, cool, let's get out before things get change. It's like yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Highlight of the trip for some.
But you did, I presume you saw some finches and some seabirds as well, and maybe some kind of land-dwelling dinosaurs.
Yeah. I mean, everything was as you know, predicted. In fact, we saw all of the endemic birds and all the specialty creatures that we had access to, right? So, and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you miss, the large tree finch but what was really maybe the most birdie magical time that we had was we stopped at this very special cliff on the coast where the actually rather rare Galapagos martin, the swallow, breeds, and they weren't breeding or they weren't there. And usually they're there. And so I was like, well, if we don't see them here, we basically don't see them unless we get really lucky, some crazy place. And we were then day later on the bottom end of Isabella Island, and you can go up the side of a volcano up to see a crater there, which is Sierra Negra. And we don't always do it because it's a little bit of a hike. But this day we actually had seen the brujo flycatcher and so forth, everything kind of that we, woodpecker finch. So our park guide said, let's go up this trail. It's a shortcut to go up to the top. And we went up there and it was really, really foggy. It was really super foggy. You couldn't see anything. So I knew from experience, we're at the rim of this huge, huge caldera, like massive, like miles wide. And you couldn't see a thing. And I said, well, why don't we just hang out here? Maybe it'll clear up. And one of the participants, Catherine, she said, oh, I feel it. It's going to clear up. And then about 15 minutes later, it clears up. Like it just clears up. And we're taking pictures and everything. And I said, gosh, when it clears up like this, we actually have a chance to see out martin because it's here. It breeds in this caldera somewhere. And we were taking pictures of everything. We're okay. We're going to go down now. And as the moment we said, we're going to go down, they flew right over. So we had, everybody was like high-fiving, like, oh, there's a martin. Oh my God. Taking pictures, And you would think that, gosh, if you've seen a purple martin, these things are pretty similar. They're a little smaller, but and the excitement over it was partially you're going to this island where there's such unique creatures, and a lot of people had not even concentrated on looking at that swallow as anything special. They just figured it'd be everywhere because martins are kind of everywhere. But the Galapagos martin is not everywhere. It's really rare. So once everybody knew that, and then once we had missed it, and I told people, like, I really don't think we're going to see that. It was so exciting to sort of see it when at the last moment where it was possible. And after coming up there in the fog. So that was a birding highlight. And then the last day we found our Galapagos rail and the paint-billed crake and the large tree, all the things that were sort of we hadn't seen, and those big old tortoises. It was like, woohoo, So it was like really one of those trips where everybody had a great, great time. And the first trip ever, I think, where more than half of the people on the trip were either my age or younger. So usually it's been historically the other way around. And that bodes well for birding, everybody.
That's right.
There's more and more people getting into this maybe at younger stages in their life. So that's cool. There you go. Galapagos. Great. Highly recommended.
Nice.
Yeah. I've probably talked about how Galapagos was like my childhood dream destination. I still haven't been, but that was the place that National Geographic kids, they would always do these like photo contests, and that was always the grand prize. They must have had some sort of setup where they could send a family there easily, but I always tried to win that.
Yeah. Didn't get there yet. So when you get there, you're probably going to get down on the ground, and kiss the ground, like the people do.
Yeah. It's one of those places that like I've built that up in my mind for almost my entire life. I don't know what I'll do when I get there. Right. I think it's really interesting to hear, particularly on these islands where you can look at, a trip list and see like there are this many endemic birds, but that really doesn't tell you how widespread they are on the islands, how range restricted they are, like what their actual numbers are like. That's a whole different level than just a list of endemic birds.
Right. And Yeah, and also some birds are like, you get to Espanola Island, you will see the Espanola ground finch, the X large cactus finch that was there. You will just see it in a day's birding. And so in a sense, it's cool and it's different and it's unique and it's endemic to one little island, but it's not nearly the same as the birds you have to work for. Like
Yeah.
the Galapagos rail is not always easy. And some that are more widespread, like even sometimes vegetarian finch, which is in multiple islands and is not a rare bird at all. On a tour, it can be, you have times when you're in its habitat, and if the first one does not pan out, then your second spot doesn't pan out. You're to the third spot, and that's it. If you don't see it there, you're not going to see it. And it's got such a cool name, vegetarian finch. And it is a
cool
neat
shape,
one
too. It's really different than the others. Yeah,
it's big, like big chunky monkey. Yeah.
To me, the two that I always sweated were the rail and the martin.
Right.
The most. Those were ones that always felt gettable, but like you need some luck to get them.
Yeah. Large tree finch, though, that's another one that is weirdly.
Yeah.
It might be rarer now than it used to be, because it's always the one. And it's not one that's exciting in some weird way because it's just the large version of three species,
I think.
But
is Santa Cruz still the best island for them?
Yeah. Santa Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, well, maybe we got to do a life list Galapagos trip, and we can all, yes, 2027.
Yes.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Tiger sharks and Galapagos.
Yeah.
Seabirds and pseudo finches.
Yeah, pseudo finches.
Like it. Well, speaking of seabirds, have you guys seen this paper that's making the rounds?
Making the rounds. Yeah. Yeah, the Petrels and Storms paper. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your take on this? Molly, you had kind of some thoughts on it, right?
Yeah, sure.
The title is Oceanic Seabirds Chase Tropical Storms. This thing came out, and we've received it from a couple listeners. Sent it to us because people know this is right up our alley. And yeah, we've been chatting about it.
Yeah, it is one of those where it took until a few people sent it to me for me to actually get in and read it. So I will admit that. But then once I got into it, I was really fascinated. So the long and short of this is that it was discovered that these petrels are following cyclones. So that in itself, okay. What I think is really interesting is it gets into how little is known about how these like storms and different natural cycles affect oceanic life. And when I think about changes in the ocean or what is and isn't known from environments within the ocean, a lot of times I'm thinking about what's under the water. But then I started thinking about this from like a woodland comparison. This is like the equivalent of a wildfire going through or something where it causes a lot of destruction. But then there's also these situations where it's benefiting certain things in the short term. So this is a sort of like feeding, I don't know, frenzy that's probably too much to say, but to show that these petrels are actually following these cyclones and are likely feeding on what is rapidly being produced from the chlorophyll on the surface. I thought it was all really fascinating once I started getting into it and thinking about how this kind of is affecting food sources on the surface of the water specifically.
Yeah. And you always hear about how some people will say like, gosh, we can't have these petrels just on this one island because the hurricane could come through and destroy them. But I've always thought that petrels are the one birds that can get out of the way. And the fact that they're not getting out of the way, they're actually using these storms to feed. You think like, wow, so global warming with an increase of tropical cyclones may in fact benefit some of these birds seems like such a crazy concept. Of course, it doesn't benefit people, and it doesn't benefit land birds that might be hit by a cyclone hitting their island. But the fact that they're foraging behind these storms, kind of after the storm kind of churns up everything, right? That's, I think, what I understood, right, Molly? It's like the storm churns up the water, so the colder water comes up to the surface, and there's suddenly more productivity after the storm goes by. It's pretty
This
cool.
is starting like bottom of the food chain, right? Your primary production is
Yeah.
increasing from these changes in water temperature and different levels. They cited chlorophyll as being the main reason for that. So yeah, I mean, certainly a lot of damage being done too, but it's interesting to think about that flip side and that there are species taking advantage of it. And that in some cases, and they're in the wind. So there's details in here too about how it's affecting their flight within this. I didn't read that quite as much as I was looking at this kind of information, but they're following it for thousands of kilometers in some cases.
Yeah. And this may be a uniquely Atlantic phenomenon. Like, you just don't get the same kind of movement of cyclones and that stay sort of within the ocean for such a long time in the South Atlantic, or I mean, thinking of North Atlantic, or even the ones in the Pacific. It just sort of seems like they go straight into the land, like they're not. You have these situations where the cyclones are starting out by Africa and kind of moving through offshore in the US, and then wrapping around almost to head towards the UK. It's like a long distance of storm movement within the water. That's maybe it isn't uniquely North Atlantic, but it sort of seems like it when you start thinking about a lot of the Pacific pterodroma are way longer winged, dealing with lower winds than some of these. These are Phaea's petrels, right? What they call Desertus petrel, which is a subspecies, which I've never seen them, but George probably seen these things. They're pretty squat, right? Like high wind kind of birds.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. There's kind of two taxa nested within Phaea's petrel that appear. Most authorities seem to split Desertus petrel, which is mostly what we see off North Carolina, and then kind of true Phaea's petrel. True Phaea's petrel breeds in the Cape Verde Islands. Desertus breeds in the Desertas Island, or on Bugio, which is a small island off the Desertas Islands. And then there's the much, much rarer Zeno's petrel, which Cape Verde Phaeas and Desertas Phaeas are pretty similar overall. Desertus has like a little bit of a heavier bill, I think. And Zeno's is the smallest with a smaller bill and generally a little bit of a different underwing pattern. But the three are pretty difficult to separate unless you get really good views or if you go right to the breeding areas during the time that they're breeding. But yeah, it's certainly, this paper got a lot of folks really thinking about these birds even more. And I think it's one of the most beautiful seabirds, what we call Phaea's petrel. I think of it like, for me, going off the trips with Brian Pattison and Kate Sutherland off North Carolina, even though Bermuda petrel is kind of a sexier, rarer bird in some ways, and Trindade petrel is a great bird as well, and really a long-winged thing that's much more longer and slender. Phaea's petrel to me it's just kind of pearly, pale overall with these darker underwings, and not quite as long-winged. They just are a really handsome seabird, and adding to the romance here is that they're like, oh, there's a big storm over there. I think I'm going to skirt the fringes of it for thousands of miles because there's going to be good winds for flying and plenty of food around. Really only adds to the romance of that species.
I think he's just saying this to make us jealous, Molly, because I've never seen one. Have you seen one, Molly?
No, I haven't seen one.
So we
But we're
haven't
getting
seen them.
George's
So
takes on beauty today.
yeah, it's like everything. I disagree. The name Fea means ugly, right there.
It's kind of true, I guess.
Greenland shark. Oh, beauty.
It's true. It's beautifully ugly. The Greenland shark really is.
It's cute, ugly.
Yeah. Ugly, cute. Yeah. It's like Jabba the Hutt, cute. Yeah. Yeah.
But for folks who don't spend a lot of time looking at oceanic birds, it can be really hard to start figuring out what these differences are. And if you're just staring at them again and again in a field guide, you're not getting these differences in their natural histories or how they're feeding or how they're moving or where they're breeding. There's a lot to pick apart there.
Yeah. The way they move in wind, even within the sheer waters, there's like some major differences depending on how big they are, how long winged they are, how broad winged they are. And that you go out with people who've been on the ocean a lot, they'll be like, oh, here's a, pink footed, flies this way. And if you're new, you'd be
thinking,
oh
what?
my God,
it's just that thing looks dark or, black and white little thing in the distance.
Right.
Like,
how is it different from the seagulls? It's like, which is a valid question. And George did not get his seagull species, but they're having other splits and lumps happening recently. So
it's true. Yeah. Yeah. Including in the seabird realm. There have been some. Yeah. Sargasso. Yes. Sexy Sargasso.
That's, just like, I think I'm going to do a little bit more extended AOS taxonomy thing, but just to give some highlights. One is that the Audubon shearwater the name has changed, at least for North Americans, but it's because there's been a split in the species to multiple species, but the only one that is found in the US and Canada is the one that now is going to be called Sargasso shearwater, named for Sargassum, or Sargasso Sea, where the Sargassum weed, is found. And it's this unique floating, it's is it an algae or what is it actually, but it's something, it's like a planty thing.
Yeah. It's not a weed, which is what people often think.
But weed is just a name for a planty thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a plant.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what planty means to me. Like, it's not an animal or a rock. It is planty.
A brown macroalgae is what sargassum is. Is a brown a seaweed, if you will.
Well, you just told me it's not a weed.
Seaweed.
Come on.
It's a brown macroalgae, which is a seaweed, apparently. Yeah. Didn't know that. Yeah. Yeah, but the Sargasso Sea, which is probably an entity I imagine is unfamiliar to many people, is actually, in the Atlantic, kind of more or less surrounding Bermuda. It's like, I think Bermuda is almost like kind of in the middle of it. But, the Sargasso Sea is full of sargassum, which is a seaweed.
Yeah, and so the shearwater often hangs out in the sargassum, like it'll sit near these patches because there's a lot of food associated with sargassum, and even fish that come in underneath and so forth. So I guess makes sense from an ecological point of view. It also is a nice sounding name and makes you kind of ask questions like,
I'll tell you,
what's
there's some
Sargasso?
Yeah, there have been some bad bird names, that we've discussed. It perhaps even more than is called for in the past. I do not think that Sargasso shearwater falls into this category. I would say that is a quality bird name right there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow,
I agree.
Huh? We have George's stamp of approval. Very, very rarely given.
I like having takes,
Yeah.
Pick a side, people. Yeah.
Yeah. George's stamp of approval is going to be a t-shirt we're going to make. with a big old, and then there was another shearwater that was separated, and it's the Corey's shearwater, which way back was separated. There were initially no Cape Verde or Verde shearwaters, and then they were separated out from Corey's, and then we still had these two entities, one that nests in the Mediterranean, one that nests in the Atlantic. And the Mediterranean one is, I guess, supposed to be pronounced Scopolis shearwater. I have a hard time because
the first
Scopoli is what
emphasis.
I want to say.
Emphasis on the first syllable.
Scopoli.
Long O's. Scopolis. Yeah.
Scopoli. And then the true, and then the true, Corys that's left out in the Atlantic, but they both migrate into the Atlantic after breeding, and both of them are relatively common.
Yeah, Corys especially.
In the East Coast.
Corys especially, but smaller numbers of Scopolis. And they can be tricky to separate. It can be one of those things where you're better off taking pictures first and asking questions later. But sometimes they give you good views, and you can separate them more easily. Underwing pattern being a particularly important aspect.
Yeah. And I don't want to go through all of these now, but maybe those seabird ones. And I just mentioned that the one big lump that everybody is concerned about is the hoary common lesser redpolls, all now become just redpoll. And if you want more info on that,
time. Yeah,
it's that time. I kind of talked about it back in that one episode I did on super genes, but that's exactly what's going on here. It's actually, rather than two populations and asking the question, are those two populations interbreeding? This is a polymorphism. It's basically a morph. Hoary is a morph of the redpoll, and common redpoll is a morph of the redpoll. And you're like, when you think about it that way, it's like almost like a dark and pale morph, but in a different way. Then you're like, oh, this is why it's been so difficult to figure this out. This is why they sound the same. This is why there's a lot of things that are the same, yet other parts that are actually quite different. So it's a unique, I suggested it's a unique lump. We've never seen a lump like this where it's a polymorphism being lumped.
You think we will see more, Alvaro?
I don't know. I don't see one coming. I don't see anything kind of like in my, that I'm thinking, yeah, maybe, but I don't know. We may get the opposite. Red crossbills will be like,
Oh boy, that's scary.
Yeah. So this is expression of genes, essentially, right?
Yeah, and it's those kind of big chunk of genes that code for multiple characters that are being passed in a way that is, within the population, they're just being passed, but expressed, in a certain way on some individuals, depending on how they're arranged. Mm-hmm. I guess.
Yeah, I think that there's as usual, good summary of these at the ABA Taxonomy Checklist Redux 2024 by Michael Retter. That's a nice place for folks to review these. And Al, you're going to give a longer an Al take on
like that. That's preparing my
like Charlie Brown phone.
Yeah.
Then, but there'll be some good biology associated with taking this apart a little bit. In this case, Michael Retter was suggesting that the differences in size and melanin deposition seem to be clinal in a textbook example of Bergman's rule, which is a good rule to learn. I would say it's one of the good rules in biology for folks to learn.
Did he say size and color?
Let's say differences in size and melanin deposition seem to be clinal in a textbook example of Bergman's rule.
Well, he got it wrong because Glogger's rule is about melanin, and Bergman's is about size. So he's got two things. He got two things.
Two rules there.
And
Glogger's
yeah.
is the one where you get darker things in more humid areas.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like all those Pacific Northwest birds are dark,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In
Exactly.
the humid rainforest. And like
Bergman's rule's only about size.
Yeah.
And then there's
usually higher
Allen's rule.
latitudes, basically, right? Higher latitudes, bigger birds.
Yeah.
Within a species.
So partly right. I don't know. I'm just picking on you, Michael.
He likes that. So we'll I'm
He'll-
sure he'll enjoy
right.
that.
Yeah, it's I can't believe that was published that way. Just adding that knife little. So anyway, I wanted to, you put in a couple of topics here, but there's a couple that I find interesting. I don't know about these things, so you seem to be in the know there, George. Roseate terns. What's going on with roseate terns? See, we don't have them out here.
Yeah. Well, I think it looks like 3 different states have gotten records inland, which just doesn't really happen. Now, it looks like 2 of the states may refer to the same bird, and I'm trying to remember which is which. I think the PA and the Ohio bird are the same bird, and the New York bird was a different bird because one bird was banded and the other was not. But yeah, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, along the inland portions and along the Great Lakes, there were records in each state, which is just, to me, real weird. And there was some discussion among some of the friends that I was discussing this with that it might have something to do with failures of food in places where they're normally breeding and that they might be wandering, but no one's really sure what's going on. And if it's only 2 birds, it's only 2 birds, but still it just doesn't happen. Roseate terns just don't turn up inland. So I don't know. It's hard to know what to make of that. I think one of the more fun things that's going on is that like this flamingo story is continuing
I was going to avoid
unfold.
that one.
Well, part of the reason I think it's interesting is that like all the states that didn't get it before are getting it now. Now, there's a few that have not. New Jersey, notably, among the have-nots. But there was one that put down very close to the old Biden complex there in Delaware, Gordon's Pond, one put down briefly. South Carolina got one this year.
I see what's going on. Biden's trying to deflect all sorts of things going on politically using flamingos.
Yeah,
I see.
He's got a remote control flamingo, a drone flamingo that he's trying to distract things with. That would make a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Or there might be a even darker conspiracy behind all this, but I don't want to. I don't want to start making up things.
I shudder to think. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I think like Massachusetts got theirs. A bunch of people went and twitched that. New York got theirs. Delaware got theirs. South Carolina, and best of all, as you guys may remember those flamingos were turning up everywhere after that tropical storm last year, and Georgia was surrounded by flamingos and was dipping. They finally got theirs. Some friends of mine went and twitched them, so it was fun to see the photos of those birds. So yeah, anyway, these same birds from that tropical storm last year that showed up all over the place, there's still some that are knocking around and still pleasing observers.
West Virginia? No?
Virginia's already had.
Not in West Virginia.
Yeah,
not West Virginia. Those are two different states.
Yeah, George. You're Philly-centric, yeah.
It's true. I don't know. Outside of Philadelphia, I really don't know. Yeah.
I have no idea.
Are any individual birds being tracked? Do they know if any of the birds are the same that have been in multiple states? I haven't seen.
I'm pretty sure the New York bird showed up in 1 or 2 states north of there, and I don't remember how they determined. Bird? I believe so. Yeah, I think they pretty much figured out it's the same bird. But
yeah.
Wow.
I'd have to look to be sure.
Taking his passport and getting it stamped everywhere. Yeah.
Can't blame him,
So, rolling back to the terns, have you guys ever looked at the distribution of roseate tern, not just in the U.S.
wacky. Doesn't make sense.
Or the world?
Yeah.
But even within the US, Canada, or North America, there's like a breeding, really warm waters of the Caribbean. Nothing in the mid states and the Atlantic. Then they show up again kind of, in the northeast and into the Maritimes. And you're like, what? So if this bird is it a cold water bird or is it a warm water bird? What is it? And then you look throughout the world and there often are these two populations. And then you can go and do this with royal tern, sandwich tern, South American tern. There's multiple terns that have patchy distributions where they're separated by like a huge area, ternless area, but they seem to be the same thing. And I've often thought that this is ripe for somebody to sort of put together a history of the terns as well as the ecology of these birds. Like, how can you be the same thing and be in completely different types of oceans?
You think we got some cryptic species here that are flying under the radar?
Not necessarily, but it might just be like the history of the ecology. Why is it a brand new thing? Like maybe they're new lineages, but it just seems to me that it doesn't match up with most birds. Most birds have like their type of habitat that they go for, and boom, they're a tropical ocean bird. And they're not also in the, in the northern realms, but terns will do these odd things and sometimes breeding at different times of the year. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of things you'll discover. I think not only maybe systematics, but how terns kind of took over the world and what might be the habitat issues that they're sensitive or not sensitive to, unlike gulls, which, totally different deal.
You'll have to discuss one of the other splits that happened that includes the terns, in your time.
Oh, you mean gull-bill tern? No.
Sandwich. I don't know. Did AOS not do that? Maybe that was just eBird.
No, there's no AOS, no. But gull-bill tern from Australia was taken out of a gull-bill tern. They're going to call that seagull-bill tern, of course, which
people do not believe this man.
Yeah. Geochelidon.
He's a
Georgii.
disruptor. He's a disruptor.
But we have many more topics to talk about. We have no time.
That's true.
What are we going to do? We're going to just talk about what we got coming up, I think.
Yeah, we got to roll. Yeah.
We should do that. Molly, what are you up to in the next few months?
Well, in the next few months, taking off to Arizona in a couple weeks for my annual jaunt down there during the Southeast Arizona Birding Festival. But a big group of friends has gotten into the habit of tagging something on either before or after. And this year, a bunch of us are camping in the Chiricahuas before. So that's always really fun to plan. Everyone, kind of knows that this is a good spot to gather. So we're going to have some fun there.
Mexican chickadee.
Yeah. Nice. That's right.
Yeah, I remember I've probably only seen Mexican chickadee twice in my life, but I remember thinking that it was a little different than I expected. It was not just another chickadee. It's kind of one of those, you see it and you're like, oh, this is kind of unique.
Yeah. That was my 500th ABA bird. And that was the only time I've been to the Chiricahuas before, like properly in the Chiricahuas. So. Yeah. It's a special bird for me anyway, but yeah.
That's just an exciting place to be, the Chiricahuas.
Yeah. Can't wait. The Tucson area, all of it's great. There's so much to see. I mean, I think this is actually my 10th time going to the Tucson area.
Holy moly.
It never gets old. Yeah. It's kind of the one place away from home that I consistently travel to every year now. But yeah, tour wise, I've talked about tours on both the Hill Star and Alvaro Adventures fronts. Panama is up for next summer on Hill Star. West Virginia and both my Colombia trips next February. Cuba's up on Alvaro's Adventures. And on the co-op side, I know I've been pretty quiet about that. We've done a big reorganization of kind of figuring out the direction of the co-op now that we're sort of out of the very virtually based phase that we were when the co-op started during the pandemic. And one thing that we're planning that I'll be able to talk about more once we fully announce it next month, we're doing a big neotropic, like introduction to neotropic birding and travel bash in 2025. So yeah, we're going to have a whole trip in the neotropics that is sort of workshop based for both just birding and actually traveling in the neotropics. And that's going to be a lot of fun. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Mm-hmm. I used to do some of these classes, workshops in the neotropics with teaching people how to be a bird guide. And it's amazing how much fun it was to actually go birding, come back and have a little meeting during the sort of lazy time of the day and just sort of learn something, and then go do a little birding or night stuff. And it was almost like it was, I don't want to say more fun than an average tour, but it was broken up into so different facets that were interesting and different that I really, really enjoyed it. So that sounds kind of like it'd be something moderately similar to that.
Yeah. I mean, the co-op board has talked about this. It's almost a bit of a nostalgic take on how a lot of tours are like hitting highlights and, seeing as much as possible. But this is sort of workshop, sort of symposium, a lot of socialization and a cool birdie place. It's kind of what we're shooting for here.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
George, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm home for a stretch, which I'm excited about. But yeah, I've got my Brazil trip coming up soon to the Pantanal, and I'm excited about that. And I'm also excited about our cruise, Al, at the end of the year, which there might be 1 or 2 spaces left at this point. It's getting close to sold out.
Basically, it was sold out for all of it other than sort of some of the bigger staterooms. But I heard from folks at Heritage the other day that there was a one cabin with, a twin room cabin that had opened up. So that may or may not be available. But if anybody's been kind of like sitting there thinking I may or may not do it, give us a ring or a email and we'll see if that's available. So
yeah, we got a great gang going. It's going to be a ton of fun, and I'm super stoked for that. Yeah, I would encourage folks to take a look at my Costa Rica trip coming up in March. Still got some space, and so check out Costa Rica with Hillstar, me guiding with my friend Troy Bynum in March. So yeah, would love to have you with us. Hope you will join us in Costa Rica, and yeah, I think that's all I got for the time being.
All right. Don't you have a pelagic trip coming up? I saw.
We do. I'm not sure when this will hit, but we have actually 2 pelagics coming up, deepwater pelagics, one in August and one in September. So those would be worth a check. We have the Hillstar site has got a little bit of an overhaul. So if you go there and you kind of go to our trips and tours section, you can now see that there's 3 places by which you can examine our tours. One is tours by category, the kind of tours that we do, which includes birding focus trips, safari trips, what we call chill mode. Molly will have more to say about that at some point. We've got a couple chill mode trips in the works, and we have our tours by region, and then we have our pelagics page as well. So if you go there, you'll see information about the cruise that we just talked about, Al, and also a couple of pelagics coming up into Maryland waters, one in August that departs on the 11th of August, and then another that goes on September 8th, both into Maryland waters, but the first sailing from Delaware, the second sailing from Ocean City, Maryland.
So you didn't think that my 3 levels you didn't listen to me when I said they should be like wonderful trips, fantastic trips, and awesome trips? No. You didn't find that helpful?
Yeah, right. I appreciated that.
Okay.
That input, and we are continuing to
right.
to
okay.
think.
I'll use it then. I'll use it.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome to run with it. Yeah.
So we have, Bhutan. Looks like, we're going to do Bhutan in November with Peter Burke. So that is a trip that still probably has like 4 spots open. Like I said, New Zealand and Japan in winter has spots in February. So that'll be me leading it with Japanese experts. And those stellar sea eagles, cranes, all of that stuff, perhaps climbing right up there to be one of my favorite tours to do, not only for the birds, but the culture and the food. We've talked about food. There's no tomato pie in Japan, actually. It's
probably
endangered.
No Necco wafers, though, either. So.
Actually, there might be those. They probably have like multiple flavors you've never seen in the world, because candy and Japan, hand in hand. Oh, boy.
Next level.
Yeah, next level candy. Stuff you've never seen. Snacks. Best snacks in the world, I think. And on that note, thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
All right, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.